You keep saying, "I'm tired," but you're not. Your body isn't failing. Your muscles aren't worn down. Your bones aren't breaking under labor. The truth is simpler and darker. You are not tired. You are spiritually starving. And no amount of sleep will cure that, because your exhaustion is not physical, it's existential. You're not weary from work. You're weary from living a life that leaves your soul unfed. Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote, "Man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills." And that is the curse. You cannot will what nourishes you. You cannot will the world to feed your soul. You can only learn to stop mistaking poison for food. We live in an age of comfort. Your ancestors broke their backs under the sun. They worked fields until their hands bled. They walked barefoot for miles. They carried water, chopped wood, hunted, built, and yet they didn't speak the way we do. They didn't all walk around muttering, "I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired." But you, living in air-conditioned rooms, with endless entertainment, with machines to wash your clothes, with food at the tap of a phone, you drag your body like it's already a corpse. Why? Because you're not physically fatigued. You're spiritually empty. You are not tired from labor. You are tired from meaninglessness. And here is the brutal truth. A life of endless comfort starves the soul faster than a life of suffering, because suffering sharpens you. Comfort dulls you. And when you're dulled for too long, you mistake starvation for tiredness. Schopenhauer described life as a pendulum, swinging endlessly between pain and boredom. When you don't have what you want, you suffer. That's pain. And when you finally get it, you suffer again. That's boredom. You chase something desperately, and the moment you hold it, it decays in your hands. Back and forth, pain, boredom. Pain, boredom. And this swinging pendulum is what you call life. But what the soul craves is not another swing. It craves escape. It craves stillness. It craves something beyond the will. The problem is, you don't know how to feed it. So you keep swinging. You chase. You consume. You achieve. And when you're done, you wonder why you still feel hungry. It's because the pendulum can't feed you. It only drains you. That drain is what you call tiredness. But really, it's starvation. The modern cure for exhaustion? Comfort. Take a break. Binge a show. Eat something sweet. Scroll until your brain melts. But comfort is not nourishment. Comfort is poisoned with sugar on top. It numbs the ache for a moment, but it deepens the hunger in the long run. That's why after a weekend of rest, you wake up on Monday heavier than before. That's why after hours of scrolling, you feel emptier than when you started. Because comfort doesn't feed the soul. It sedates it. It tricks you into believing you're resting when really, you're starving. And here is the cruelest truth. The more you indulge in comfort, the weaker your spirit becomes. Until eventually, you can't even remember what real nourishment feels like. That's when you live your whole life saying, "I'm tired." But you're not. You're starving. How do you know you're spiritually starving? It shows up in symptoms you've been trained to ignore. You feel restless even when you're still. You feel heavy even when you've done nothing. You feel anxious even when there's no threat. You feel bored even when surrounded by stimulation. That's not fatigue. That's starvation. It's the soul screaming, "Feed me something real." But what do you give it? Noise, distractions, consumption, pleasure. And every time you do, the starvation grows deeper. You call it burnout, you call it depression, you call it fatigue. But at its root, it's the spirit rotting from neglect. So what does the soul hunger for? Not more tasks, not more recognition, not more applause. The soul hungers for truth, for beauty, for silence, for depth, for creation. That's why music can break you open in a way no paycheck ever will. That's why a single moment of stillness in nature can heal more than 1,000 distractions. That's why creating, even poorly, feeds you in a way consumption never can. Because in those moments, the pendulum stops swinging. The will is quiet. The soul eats. Schopenhauer saw art as salvation, not because it entertains, but because it frees us for a moment from the hunger of existence. And in that freedom, you stop being tired because you stop being starved. The world will tell you the cure for tiredness is productivity. Work harder, wake earlier, grind, hustle, achieve. But productivity is not nourishment, it's a treadmill. You run and run and run, and at the end, you collapse in the same place you started. You don't need more hours. You need more purpose. You don't need more achievements. You need more authenticity. Because productivity without meaning is just starvation with better packaging. And the more you chase it, the hungrier you become. That's why you keep saying you're tired, because you're trying to solve spiritual starvation with physical effort. It will never work. So how do you feed the starving soul? Not with distractions, not with comforts, not with shallow pleasures. You feed it with silence, with solitude, with creation, with beauty, with philosophy, with truth. You feed it by saying no to poisons, by breaking your addiction to numbing, by facing the hunger directly instead of running from it. Schopenhauer believed the path to freedom was asceticism, the refusal to feed the will with endless cravings, not because life becomes easier, but because the soul becomes lighter. You feed the spirit when you stop chasing everything external and turn inward, when you allow yourself to confront suffering directly. That is when the pendulum breaks. That is when the hunger quiets, and for a moment, the starvation ends. The day you stop being tired is not the day you rest more. It's the day you stop betraying your soul. The day you stop numbing yourself with distractions. The day you stop mistaking sedation for rest. The day you stop feeding yourself poison and start feeding yourself truth. That's the day the tiredness lifts, not because the world got lighter, but because you did. You stop being a slave to the pendulum. You stop mistaking emptiness for exhaustion. You stop calling starvation fatigue, and you finally begin to live. So the next time you say, "I'm tired," ask yourself, am I truly tired, or am I spiritually starving? And if the answer terrifies you, good, because that's the first step to healing. Feed your soul what it's been begging for: silence, beauty, truth, creation, depth. Because once your spirit is full, you'll stop feeling tired and you'll start feeling alive. And in that moment, you'll become unstoppable. Because nothing is more dangerous than a human being who is no longer starving.